Please welcome Keith Adams.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yep. All right. I want to thank Maxine, our state director, for inviting me, Roger and the people at AIM and the conference organizers. I am humbled and honored to be here this morning. As he mentioned last year, scheduled to be here, but the shutdown prevented me from being here. Probably as you hear from speakers yesterday and today, you've heard from people talking about creativity, innovation, and transformational technologies in the cloud. I am probably the least qualified person to be in front of you this morning. But I will tell you that if you are faithful and obedient, you will be promoted. If you are faithful and obedient, you will be promoted. So that's for somebody in the room who may be feeling a little discouraged. If you can be. If I'm standing here, anybody can stand here. All right, let me talk to you a little bit about the history of RUS before I go into where we are now and how we're building smarter broadband communities. As you know, the Rural Electrification Administration started in the 30s with the Roosevelt administration. And our first administrator, Morris Cook, used that opportunity to electrify the countryside. And our previous administrator, John Padalino, used to use Morris Cook all the time in our staff meetings to talk about how he built the co-ops and how he did roadshows and how we should be doing that with broadband. So we kind of carry that on. In 1949, there was money set aside to fund telephone loans and grants. And then in 1995, all funding for USDA Rural Utility Service Telecommunication Program is broadband capable. That's what brings us to today, where we have reorganized what has been done, say, over the past 20 years. We used to have, and I do want to recognize our general field representative in here today. Where's Andre? Andre Boeing is our general field representative who handles Nebraska, has been for some time. He has recently picked up some duties in Wisconsin, and he's helping out until we can find a replacement. I don't think, as I told him this morning, I don't think we'll ever find anybody to replace him, but we'll find somebody to put here to help you advance your broadband initiatives here. But what we've had in the past was we had a geographic system where we had the Northern Division, the Southern Division, the Broadband Division. And that worked for us up until, say, probably 10 years ago. We talked about reorganizing as a lending institution may reorganize, where you have one group that takes in the loans, one group that services the loans, and one group that does policy and outreach. So that's what we've gotten to here with this organization here. We have deputy assistant administrators instead of directors for all four of our divisions. The operations group kind of handles the internal loan origination and approval, portfolio management and risk analysis, and then policy and outreach. Loan and grant origination. This is where we're going to have all of our incoming grants and loans coming into one division. We think that's going to provide more consistency. As you can see later on in the presentation, we've reduced the time it takes us to process some of our loans and grants. So what we had was, unfortunately, we had a Northern Division who did a little bit of this, and a Southern Division who did a little bit of that, and a Broadband Division who did a little bit of this. So we had our grant programs. We have a Community Connect program that came into the Broadband Division. And we had our distance learning and telemedicine grant program that came into our advanced services division. And then you had different type of loans coming in. So everything's going to come into one group, and this group has loan specialists, they have engineers, they have branch chiefs, then they have program management analysts who are going to be responsible for bringing the loans in, presenting them to the committees for approval, and preparing the documents. Portfolio management and risk analysis will take over after the closing of the loan. They're going to be doing all the servicing. Right now, their main focus is closing out our broadband initiative programs. We have funding through September 30, 2015. So roughly 363 days from today, the funding for the BIP program expires. So right now they're processing contracts, they're processing fund requests. So that group is really focused on the BIP program right now, but they also look at, we have a risk analysis group who's going to start looking at what is our portfolio for risk? How much risk are we willing to accept? What are we going to do about distressed borrowers? What are we going to do about troubled borrowers? What are we going to do about some borrowers who find themselves in delinquent status? You know, how can we work with them, and how can we work with the Department of Justice and Department of Treasury in those instances? They'll be taking a closer look at how we interact with the FCC and how we look at our USF issues and follow up with all the type of issues that you see here, loan modifications. So this group is very important, and right now it's probably our largest group. Policy and outreach. We've never had policy and outreach groups per se. In the assistant administrator's office, we had one or two outreach specialists, and we really didn't have an organized plan for what conferences we were going to attend, what meetings we were going to attend, what promotional material we were going to hand out, what type of presentations we were going to do. You know, we have lots of preparation that we have to do for testimonies on the Hill, for different subcommittees, for our secretary, for our undersecretary, for our administrator. We have data requests that come in. We have General Accountability Office audits. We have Inspector General audits. We have questions from senators and members of Congress and from newspapers. We have to pull all of that together in this one unit, in addition to working with our regulations. You know, some of our regulations have been around since I mentioned 1949, and most of them don't talk about broadband. They talk about telephone. So we need to change some of our regulations. We need to implement the 2014 Farm Bill. There's some special things in there about a rural gigabit pilot. We need to write a new regulation for our Farm Bill program, which kind of went away when the 2014 Farm Bill came in. The 2008 Farm Bill was no more. So this group will be working on a number of things, and they're probably the newest group as far as not really having a template to follow. Investments in Nebraska, as you can see here, we kind of, and this was one of the things I asked the new policy and outreach group to do, we kind of look at things as for this administration as it's kind of almost, you know, a year and a half through, you know, what have we done since 2009? As you can see here, it's almost $147 million in loans. And this is mostly from our infrastructure program. And for our distance learning and telemedicine, we've approved 12 grants for a little bit over $3 million. So it's almost $150 million that we've invested in Nebraska just since 2009. And I was talking to one of the public utility commissioners here this morning, and I think that from what I'm hearing, that Nebraska has a great plan moving forward and is doing some great things as far as getting fiber to the home and enhanced broadband out to rural America. In some cases, it's better than some other parts of the state. So I think everybody here should be commended, but RUS stands committed to do even more as we move forward. We talk a little bit about our successes here, and it was a distance learning and telemedicine grant to the Good Samaritan Hospital Foundation. And for those of you who are maybe a little bit not familiar with our distance learning and telemedicine grants, they necessarily don't go to organizations that are small businesses or fit a certain scope. They can go to a hospital, they can go to a university, they can go to anybody who's going to serve an area of, say, 5,000 people or less. And the distance learning and telemedicine program, as you can see here, some of the things that they have done, I mean, this program just saves lives in many instances. It's preventative care, and we were just so pleased to partner not only with Good Samaritan, but with hospitals and universities across the country. And we just wish we had more money in this program. As you see, you'll see in a slide further down the presentation how much money it was proposed for the distance learning and telemedicine. And we're just now wrapping up our first round of announcements for this program, but it's well oversubscribed every year. These are the different funding opportunities that we have. We have our traditional loan program where we have probably a little bit more than 60% of the funds that we did not spend this year. So we do have money. We are open for business if anybody wants a loan. You can see Andre and I afterwards. The Farm Bill loan program hopefully will be open in January. We're working on that regulation. As I said, the 2008 Farm Bill expired when the 2014 came in, and Congress made some slight changes which necessitated a regulation change. But we think we have already probably twice as much interest in the program as we do the funding that has been requested. And then we have our Community Connect program, and we talked about our distance learning and telemedicine. These are the budget numbers: $690 million for our infrastructure in both the House and the Senate, $24 million versus $34 million in broadband. And as I said, we probably have interest double that already. So when we open up the program, we'll be evaluating those applications. $10 million for Community Connect, and there's a $4 million difference in the House and Senate for the distance learning and telemedicine program. Processing time. This is where we're talking about the efficiencies and effectiveness that we feel as though our new reorganization structure will help us with. And as you can see here, this 2014, we were able to get one more loan in by the time this presentation was sent to Rod. So we have 14 loans this year for $219 million. But as you can see here, our processing time was reduced by about 4 months. And I think that is due to the fact that we have worked closely with our general field representatives who are working closely with our borrowers so that when the applications come in, there's less back and forth about different things that we need. We have a new loan application guide, we think, that we rolled out last year that helps simplify and lets people know exactly what we want. And we're putting more emphasis on customer service, making it easier to do business with us at the RUS when applications get in, trying to get back to our borrowers, trying to get back to potential borrowers and let them know what some of the issues are with the application to try to push it through as soon as we can. We are right now looking at ways that we can streamline our process for accepting financials. And maybe using current financials that we have on board and doing some projections with what may be coming, because financials come at different points of the year. There were concerns at some points that RUS wouldn't process a loan if it came in at a certain time. And that's no longer the case. We're processing loans. As you can see here, we have 12 in-house now for roughly $125 million that we started working on yesterday as the first day of the fiscal year. So hopefully our goal is this year to get it down to, I know it says 5.5, I'll say 5 months, and we'll see how that works. But we want to continually get better in processing and make a decision. We think it's fair and prudent and being good stewards of the taxpayers' money, that when you submit a loan to us, that we give you an answer and we analyze it and do our due diligence, but we don't drag things on. So that's our goal. We talk about our application process into tomorrow. I will be the first to admit that our process probably is very paper-driven. It's not as technologically advanced as we like it to be. So this spring, we think we're going to be able to roll out a new intake system where there will no longer be reams and reams of paper coming into Washington. You will be able to submit loan applications and grant applications online. It will be transparent. Everybody will be able to see it. The borrower, our general field representative, our loan specialists, our engineers, our branch chiefs, our deputy assistant administrators, anybody who needs to look at it will be able to see it online. And we think that this process will help reduce that cycle time, because having an online system provides a more transparent and efficient way to process applications. Now, we don't expect it to be like healthcare.gov, but on the other hand, we don't expect for it to roll very smoothly or without any hiccups. So if you are submitting an application next spring, please bear with us. We're going to do as much as we can to make it as painless as possible. Okay, what does it take to get a loan? Many of you probably know that, but for those of you who don't, we ask for a pro forma financial analysis. We need designs from your engineers, environmental review. We're trying to work with that process also. We know that was a major contributor to the fact that we had to extend the Broadband Initiative projects, the BIP projects, from 3 to 5 years because we had such a hard time with things that people didn't understand that they would have to go through, such as environmental, some labor issues with Davis-Bacon Act and other things. But the environmental review, you really need to look at that, and federal certifications such as Equal Opportunity and Discrimination Act, and some certifications for architectural designs and things of that nature. And this is basically the process, and as you can see here, it starts with working with our general field representatives who live in the community, live in the state, and they're the first point of contacts, and they're the ones who are going to work with you to make sure that you're looking at whether your loan is feasible, whether it's what your financials in the out years look like, and they know what the financial analysts will be looking at in Washington, and you work with them. That's the first part of the process. We have the completeness review, then we get into our due diligence with our financial people, our loan specialists, and our engineers. Then hopefully we issue an offer letter. Then it will go to the Assistant Administrator Loan Committee, and if it's over a certain amount of money, it may go to the Senior Loan Committee. Then we have the offer letter, loan closing, and then the funds will be made available. So, as you can see right now, in 2013, that took 11.7 months, almost a year. We've gotten it down to half a year. So hopefully we can get it down to 5 months. That's our goal. And what do you get? You get a longer amortization period, a good interest rate. We have financial and compliance reporting, distribution restrictions, and protection from other RUS loans. So we think that, there are other options out there. If you've been following what's going on in the broadband world, the Secretary of Agriculture hosted a panel, and he called it the Rural Opportunities Investment Conference. And at that conference, I think CoBank pledged $10 billion over 10 years to invest in rural broadband. The FCC is coming out with their rural experiment. I think that's coming out very soon. That's going to provide money. So there are other options to finance and fund for your rural broadband expansion. But as I said, we are open for business, and these are some of the things that we can provide as really the government's infrastructure lending organization, along with what we do in our group, what our counterparts in the electric program do, and what we do in water and waste. So if there are any questions, I can take those now. I don't know how we are for time, but well, if you think of any questions, I'll be around. I really appreciate the opportunity here, and I really appreciate what you're doing for the rural residents of Nebraska, because we've seen through our work that having broadband, enhanced broadband, is an economic driver. And it develops small communities. It brings in businesses. It helps the kids. It helps the students. We've seen where the persistent poverty level for rural Americans is going up for children. And how can children really compete these days if they don't have high-speed broadband in the schools and when they get home? And it also helps when you're talking about people who have have left rural America and gone away to college and probably living in an urban, suburban life, and then they want to come back to rural America. It's very hard for them to come back if they don't have broadband in that community. So I applaud everyone in this room for what you're doing and the organizers of this conference. Thank you very much.